All right, Idowa Shenuga, MD, Agric Supplies Limited is here with us to discuss this. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, so the federal government, from the inception of this administration in 2015, says it wants to diversify the economy by ensuring that agriculture becomes our mainstay like it used to be in the past. How would you rate it at this point?
I think the federal government is actually making some strides in terms of efforts, really. But then what is actually missing is harmonizing those efforts. Okay. Because what we've found out is for you to get any tangible result, you need all stakeholders, to be on the same frequency. And that is what is actually missing. And that is why we felt there's a need for us to create a platform through which all these stakeholders can come together and begin to have tangible discussion that will create impact.
When you say harmonizing all efforts, galvanizing everybody to come together have them on the table, how do you mean? Is it just calling a roundtable discussion, or what are you looking at specifically?
Yeah, if you take, for instance, the poultry sector of the Nigerian agribusiness, there's a major challenge in that sector, which is egg lot, annual egg lot. This takes place every year. But then for you to solve that kind of problem, you need the critical stakeholders to come together, engage and discuss, because it has a lot to do with importation, it has a lot to do with power supply, it has a lot to do with policies. And to solve that kind of problem that has bedeviled that sector for decades. When I was very young, my dad used to complain about egg lot. I'm close to 50, and the problem is still there. So you need all the stakeholders to come together, look at this problem from an holistic point of view, and begin to, change the narrative. Because it's not something that one agency, one government parastatal, or even the private sector
this issue has been with us
since
before you became an adult, so to speak.
Absolutely.
How confident are you that just having this discussion will change the narrative?
Yeah, it's going to change the narrative, because now you put in the round peg in a round hole. For instance, at the conference, at the exhibition and conference we open to have on the 18th to 20, there's a discussion around solving this problem of egg lot. And then we're calling all the experts. We're calling the private sector. We even bringing in a lady from Ghana, to share regional experience. So now they've been able to solve this problem in Ghana.
Let's leave the discussion here now. Idowu Ashenuga, thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you.
Right, Idowu Ashenuga, MD, Agric Supplies Limited, joins us now to talk more on this. Thank you for joining us at TVC Breakfast.
Thank you and good morning.
Now, one of the issues being faced by Africa and perhaps Nigeria is the issue of food security and self-sufficiency. Now, how will this bringing the stakeholders together ensure that we are able to deal with this head-on?
Yeah, thank you for that question, because we are actually motivated to create impact, and that's why we've spent quite a lot of time and resources trying to engage most of the critical stakeholders in the agribusiness value chain. To this effect, we've engaged very strongly the Senate and the House of Rep, and their House of Rep counterpart. So we've had several meetings with the head of Senate Committee on Agriculture, the distinguished Senator Abdullahi Adamu, who is also going to be at this event. Because for Nigeria to get it right, we need to look at policies, we need to look at finance, and then we need to look at knowledge gap. Because what is actually, for us, the most critical problem that has stopped us as a nation from achieving the tangible strides in agribusiness is knowledge. Ironically, the focus has been on government trying to look at finance, trying to look at other aspects which are less important than knowledge and capacity. And without capacity, you can't do much. Because, for instance, if you look at Nigerians, even Nigerians in the diaspora, you find out that you find them in the fields of medicine, engineering, what have you. But then I've traveled all over the world, and I've met several Nigerians. I have hardly seen any Nigerian that is playing actively, anywhere, in the diaspora within the agribusiness space. So there's no way we can actually transfer knowledge from Nigerians in the diaspora to Nigerians here in the local terrain. And the Westerners, unfortunately, will not give it to you for free. So we need to start looking at all of those challenges and then try to see how we can together, build capacity. And if you find out also that most of the institutions, like the International Institute for Tropical Agriculture, which has been lying there in Ibadan, over the decades, the knowledge that comes from RITA does not get to the farmers. So we need to find a way to harmonize all of these together for us to begin to have tangible impact. And that's what this platform, which we're creating, stands to do.
But in creating capacity, there's also the issue of funding. We had someone, a farmer, read this week, and he lamented the fact that funding is a huge problem for most farmers in the agribusiness. How do we bridge the gap?
Yeah, I mean, you see, the irony has always been that people place the cart before the horse. Okay, if you bring 50 billion into agribusiness and you don't have the required capacity in terms of knowledge, know-how, your money is going to disappear. And that's what has been happening over the years. You see the banks are very reluctant to fund agriculture because the knowledge and capacity in that sector is very limited. Okay, and unfortunately the institutions are more or less like moribund. And the international institutions that are available, the knowledge is not being moved to the private sector. It's just lying there on the shelf. So these are the problems, and we have looked at it from this point of view. When you talk about knowledge, now knowledge can easily be acquired online. Okay, and all we need to do is to look at the aspect where we want to play. I'll give you a very good example. Nigeria is the highest producer of cassava in the world, but we are not the largest exporter of cassava product. Okay,
and that's a challenge of knowledge?
No, it's a challenge of knowledge because we need to move from the primary product, process the product, and export. Thailand is the highest exporter of cassava products in the world. They do more than $3 billion.
Let's leave it here now. Ido Ashenuga, thank you for speaking with us. Until